Welcome everybody. My name is Andres Tardillo and I'm here at Wrap Up's Los Angeles headquarters with a very special guest, Faith Evans.
Hey.
Now Faith, you have a very important album dropping this year in May, The King and I, Duets project with Biggie. I'm sure that while recording this project, you went through an emotional journey of the good times, the laughs, the smiles, but then also some of the more somber moments, some of the tragic moments too that you lived through this album. Take me through the journey from the first time you got into the booth for this project, all the way up to that shoulder tap that said, "I'm proud of you."
Well, the first time I went in the booth for this project was actually prior to me having a deal. I was like excited because I knew they were interested in doing the deal, and I was actually in Detroit working with a producer named Drew Shear, and I was like, let's see what big acapellas we can find online, and two specific Biggie songs that I kind of said, okay, now that I'm going to do this deal, I've always kind of wanted to mess with 10 Crack Commandments and Me and My B, so we found those acapellas online, and actually 10 Crack Commandments, my version is 10 Wife Commandments,
Right.
and that was the first song that I actually started recording on the project. And after that, every session just kind of came together. Like, I really didn't go in knowing, like, I want this to be that, and this is, I knew that I wanted to not let Big's legacy down, number one, and keep the integrity of his work while still being creative,
and being true to yourself.
Yeah, and being true to myself as an artist. So it seemed like initially, like, is this going to be hard, or this is going to be hard? But every day it just came together easier, better and better. So I must say I wasn't challenged creatively, but I think that's all because Big Spirit was there the whole time, and all the way through toward the end of the album, I just kind of was like listening to the stuff and just listening back and watching how other people were reacting to, my creation, our creation. And I just felt like I just started crying. I felt like he tapped me on my shoulder and told me he was proud of me. So with that, I can say that I feel that way. Yeah. I can only hope that feeling, resonates to people, because, you don't have to, everyone has a choice in what they want to listen to and what they want to like. But I truly hope that people appreciate my creative interpretation.
Right. And they feel that way as well, that he's kind of a part of it.
He's definitely a part of it.
A real part of it. And so you got that shoulder tap. Is that something that you get from time to time as you live through life? Once in a while you feel like, oh, that's big there.
Over the years, I've definitely, maybe not in that same way, but, there's plenty of times, whether a funny situation or, something that I know, like, oh gosh, I should have done that. I'll just look up and start laughing, because I know he's clowning me. Or, what, you know what I mean? If he was right here, I could hear exactly how he would be clowning me, type of thing. So, yeah, I've certainly felt his presence at different times, but not quite in that same way, There's been very few times where, I've actually, shed tears, outside of the day he passed and at his funeral, I'm not a big crier, but there have been just, a few random moments that I just feel that way, This year, actually on March 9th, the day that he passed, I'm usually at home, kind of just, a regular day and noticing the posts and tweets and, if I get in the car hearing his music, but it's not like I particularly do anything on that day. I've probably been in New York twice in those 20 years, and this year was one of them, and it's like a whole different thing. And I definitely shed a tear, but it was more just seeing how much he still means to people who didn't even know him as, who didn't know him personally. They love him. And I was happy to see that they honored him at the Barclays with the Biggie night, to be able to see his mom, actually experience that and see how much people just really love her son. I did shed a tear, but, it still wasn't quite the same as, like, him telling me, I'm proud of what you're doing. Like, I'm glad you did this project. That's really how I felt.
Yeah, that's such a dope moment. Now, one of the things that I think is most surprising and commendable is the grace with which you've involved or included Lil Kim in this process because she's on the album.
Mm-hmm.
What made "Loving You for Life," particularly that song, perfect for her to be on the track, and what made you want to include her in this process?
Well, I actually wanted to work with Kim probably in my first, I want to say my first independent album, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, obviously it just wasn't the right time. God has his own timing. And at the time, I didn't even know I would be doing this album. You know, this is, you know, probably 10 or more years, 10 years ago maybe. I don't know what year. But, you know, it's not like then I knew, okay, well, I'm going to do it on, I never knew it would be on the album with me and Big. But when I was working on, when I started recording and I had the song, Loving You for Life, I came up with the hook and a couple of verses, and then I just was thinking, like, you know, I don't know, I could just hear her, I could hear her coming in every time that third verse would come. I'm like, I think this is the song, you know, and of course, thematically, you know, if I'm gonna, you know, if we're showing that we've moved past that point and we're women enough and mature enough to, you know, come together and work together, which, you know, it shouldn't take a lot. We're grown. We have children and families, and there's really no need to hang on to any bitterness. You know, I just felt like that would be even doper, like to give her that platform to talk about how she felt about him. You know, because being his wife, of course, people ask me that, and I'm sure people ask her that about him quite a bit. He was a big part of her life, but you know, for her to do it on this record with me, you know, I just thought that was, you know, just even bigger. You know, I actually asked her to be, you know, I'm like, talk about how you felt, and you know, it's okay. We both have feelings for him. You know, that's not going to change.
That's really dope that you were able to do that. Now, was that during the tour or before or after?
Actually, I asked her about would she be on the album when we were in rehearsals for the tour back in May of last year. And by the time I had started recording the song Loving You for Life, we were on tour. Probably halfway through the tour is when I had it to the point of, you know, just having her verse there for her to do.
Oh, cool. And what was the dynamic like while we're on the tour? What was the dynamic of the Bad Boy family during the reunion tour? Especially, you know, for you, kind of seeing all of these generations of Bad Boy coming together for this moment. Well,
the Bad Boy tour, number one, was a whole lot of fun. I mean, I don't think any of us could say that they didn't have a good time. It was also, for me, my first time actually doing one of those tours with them. I mean, they've done, you know, back in the day, they did a couple of them where, you know, he took the whole family and some additional artists out for a stretch of time. But I was kind of always the one to kind of do my thing on the weekends and just come back home to my kids. So I never went out with them. And I've never been a part of a production on that level. So, you know, it was really dope for me. And I'm like, well, thank God I have still been doing shows. Because I feel like out there like lost, you know, but I have still been performing throughout the years, just not in arenas, you know what I'm saying? But it was really great to see. Like we would stand backstage and just watch the monitor, you know, whoever was out on stage. And I just felt, I actually did shed a couple of tears watching, like, you know, Total's fans, you know, really show them that they love them. I was feeling proud, like, wow, you know, just to see how our contribution to music really, you know, touched people. Because every night the audience was lit in every city.
Yeah, and it's still there. And I'm sure you saw a lot of fans who probably weren't alive when Biggie dropped music.
I mean, definitely people of all ages. I saw a lot of seniors in there as well. You know, we would be like, I was always the first one at the venue and the first one on my bus, so I didn't do a lot of hanging out. But I mean, I would be there early, and sometimes I would run the stairs in the arena, you know, as my workout when I first get there. But I would actually see some of the fans lining up or outside, and you know, there was a range of generations there.
That's cool. I want to talk about Somebody Knows. It's probably one of the more powerful in moments of the album. I have to commend you for exploring such a dark moment so vividly on that track. What made that important for you to be able to dive into that night, going through the party, you know, the emotions that you felt that evening? What made that important to explore on this album?
Well, obviously losing Big, affected me hugely, and as it did everyone that loved him, outside of the music business and outside of him being an artist. I just feel like the fact that his mom and I, his family, and we, a lot of people seem to think that we kind of, the case is closed, to find his murderer and all of that stuff. When, internally it's really not that way. We just don't feel it makes sense to continue to pay attorneys when we know we're just waiting for the LAPD to say, hey, we think we know what happened, So I just felt like it was important to talk about it. You never know. I mean, maybe, in a turn of fate, something may happen. There may be a domino effect, of some sort. But I mean, I'm never gonna be afraid to talk about it. It's still something that I'm actively pursuing in terms of being a part of his family and a part of his estate. I mean, but we can't, you still got to be smart about it in a business sense. So like I said, it doesn't make sense on a financial end to just to keep making noise about it when we kind of believe that they know what happened. So it's, I mean, and also I don't know if I've ever talked about it in that way. And when I went in the studio to work on that song, to be quite honest, Salam Remy, who produced that song with me, he said, I've been listening to the stuff you got, and I'm thinking about some stuff that you don't have. You don't have something that has this. And he played the Hushacha, and he played the verse, the acapella, and I said, you know what I want to do? I just want to use that phrase alone. And maybe, then maybe as I went along, I said, okay, there's a couple of phrases I could use, but I don't want this song to be based around Big's vocal. I want it to be more clever with just using him saying "Who shot you" more so than anything throughout the song.
Yeah, and you do a good job of putting in the vocals where they make sense to your and Busta's rhymes and melodies.
You hear that, writing team? We did a nice job.
There you go. I think when we look back at 20 years, a lot of history gets distorted. Some true things are blurred, and lies are said so much and they're repeated so much that people start taking them as truth. And so when you look at something so pivotal to hip-hop culture as Biggie and Pac's relationship, what do you think is often overlooked or misunderstood about their relationship that you wish more people would get correctly?
Well, I can only speak for, because I didn't know Pac. All I knew about him was what Big spoke of, and I met him, but that was a very short period of time between me meeting him and actually working with him and his death. After I worked with him, I didn't have any contact with him, but I won't say so much that I want people to take that away, or because I don't feel it's my duty to prove anything, but something I know that I think is maybe widely misconceived. Big really did not want to believe that, there was a real problem. I think that he really wanted to believe that one day, they would be able to see each other and kind of get to the bottom of like, yo, what's up, man? Why you, tripping? You know what I mean? That was how he felt, up until, the last time I talked to him in regard to that situation, So I don't think a lot of people realize that. Especially younger people think, it's just called a beef, beef. But the beef was so much less about those two than other things.
Right. Yeah.
Probably, if at all, about those two, to be quite honest,
Yeah. And so, people try to kind of sensationalize that as well, right?
But I guess, as with other things in life, if you don't know, and sometimes things are heard so much, you just, hey, you kind of take it as that must be the truth, because I've heard it so much.
Yeah. You mentioned the Barclays ceremony earlier, and what struck me was seeing all of you at Center Court, seeing the manner, of course, hearing your voice, right, when they played More Money, More Problems, but then
that's
seeing...
Kelly Price,
I'm sorry.
Way, singing on that.
Oh, perfect. So...
Shout out to Kelly Price.
History being misunderstood. No, but seeing Valletta Wallace with CJ, that was such a great moment because of how much CJ looks like Big and like just physically looks like Big. What about spiritually though? What are some things that CJ's done growing up that you've seen and you said, man, that's Big right there?
Um, well, he's very laid back, like his dad. He has a real sly sense of humor. But there's things that CJ, I mean, he was like not even 4 months old when Big passed. So like the fact that like Big used to flick his first and second toes together, like really to where you could hear it like downstairs, like, and CJ does the same thing. And I know, he didn't see him do it,
Right.
like the way he rubs his nose when he's having a little asthma allergy type of situation, the way he stands with his feet turned in, seizing him like, wait, yo, that's funny, because why is he doing that just like B.I. right now? Like, he, every once in a while, he'll surprise. I mean, I guess it's not a surprise anymore. CJ's 20, but it's like, dang, he didn't see him do that. That's crazy how he does the same thing.
Yeah. Now, obviously, CJ started rapping. I was interested to see if he would be on the album. Is that something that you encourage, or is that something he's still pursuing? And did you think about having him on the album?
CJ actually he makes music. Him and his little brother Josh, well, his younger brother Josh, they are a collective. They put out stuff on SoundCloud under CJ and Jahai, but they've been working on a project with a young lady. So I guess they're going by a different name, Malibu Nights now, I think. But they both rap and sing, and Josh produces all their music. My daughter China also writes, sings, produces, engineers, all that stuff, raps. So they're all very musical. I don't discourage it. I actually, we got a studio in the backyard, and I have to tell them to turn the beats down at night sometimes when I'm in bed.
Yeah.
But on the business side, as long as they don't put their name on it, when they want to move forward in the business seriously, then that's my thing. Like, make sure we talk, when we figure that out.
Yeah.
But being creative, I'm never going to stop that. And, they also taking classes in college, so, it's all
Busy.
Just do something else as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm sorry, to your second question, CJ, the song One and the Same. When I initially, Salam Remy again, who produced that with me, when I went to Miami one time to work with him, he was like, I noticed you don't have a song about your son. And then he played me the Respect acapella. And I was like, you know what, I wanted CJ to be on the album. So initially the song, I wrote the song and arranged it with a verse for CJ to be on it. And then, he said he wanted to do it, and then when I got back home from Miami, I think, he was like, he wasn't, extra. He's just so, like, nonchalant. And I didn't want to force him, because I'm like, well, maybe it's because, emotionally,
Right.
And my daughter was like, I just don't think he's ready to do stuff. He probably just doesn't want to tap into that yet.
Right.
So I'm like, I understand. But I understood in the first place, but, China was like, I was like, I'm not even going to ask him again. So instead, I just finished it and rearranged it, and it is about him.
Right.
And when I played it back for him, actually one day when CJ and I were in the car together, he was looking like he was proud too. He's like, that's kind of tight.
That's really cool. Yeah, because you were relating his experience as an infant, right, to your son's and delivery. So that's really creative as well. That's another like high point or highlight in the album. You have the 20-year anniversary of Life After Death coming. What stands out to you about that, the creation of that album, and that album now, looking back on it?
I wasn't around for when Big recorded that album. I think that was probably like during my pregnancy with CJ. I think I got my first house. So I don't really remember much about it. I mean, as far as the creation of it, other than when he was in LA for that last trip he was here, I just remember him playing it. So I know he was really proud of it and couldn't wait for everybody to hear it. And every time I would pass them in the streets or see them pulling up to an event, going back to Cali or Hypnotized was bumping out the car.
Right.
So I know he was feeling it. He was playing it like on repeat. So.
And so was everybody else, right?
I mean, prior to it coming out, prior to it coming out.
Even beforehand. Yeah. Now, when people think of Big, obviously they think of everybody that's on the album. But I think they also often think about Diddy. and they think of Jay because of how many times Jay's talked about Big and his music and so on. Were they approached to be a part of this album? Was that something that you thought about including, or were they involved behind the scenes that we didn't see?
Puff actually did produce with J Dub the song "Got Me Twisted," the one with Things Done Changed.
Yeah.
But Puff was probably putting together that whirlwind tour. He actually did come to the studio early on. To his credit, excuse me. He came to the studio when I was recording at Snoop's studio, and I played him the whole album, and he sat there writing little notes down. And he told me he was going to send them to me. I still haven't gotten the notes, but basically he did where I was going with everything. I was kind of sort of toward the end of recording, and he started sending me some stuff, but this was when we were on the road, and I had to remind him, and then I ended up in Atlanta after the tour and hearing some things that I liked, but it was kind of toward the end of me having time to make more music with meeting a deadline. So that one song was the only one that ended up. But we are going to probably put out a collector's edition, so maybe I'll get to record some more of them. He actually hit me the other day and told me he found a beat.
Oh.
I'm like, he's like, the album done? I'm like, yes, it's coming out.
Right. So maybe in the collector's edition.
Right, yeah. So Puff, hold on to that.
And what about as far as Jay?
Oh, my initial plan with the Somebody Knows song, I wanted to get him on that as well. And I just didn't get the right connect. You know what I mean? I don't have a personal contact with him, and I know people that know him, but, I kind of wanted to run into him and kind of talk to him about it, but it just didn't happen in time. So
Gotcha.
Maybe that'll happen as well for the other version.
Right. We've heard about the hologram, and that's something that a lot of people are interested in. Is that still something that you're pursuing for the tour? And if so, how will that hologram be different from the holograms that we've seen of other artists?
Well, the hologram, Miss Wallace and I are working in along with Wayne Barrow, who was Big's manager with Mark Pitts when he was alive. He works with the estate a lot on different things with a company out of Canada. However, I'm not quite sure at what point in development it's at now.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I would have loved to have used it for my first video for the album, but if it's not ready, it's not ready. I mean, ultimately, I just want it to be used in the most sensible way. We just have to be tactful, so I'm not tripping that it's not like I'm like, I want to use it first.
Yeah.
I just want it to be right and want Miss Wallace to be happy with it, and for us to make, the right decisions on what makes the most tasteful decisions in how to use it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you mentioned Miss Wallace. Obviously, she's on the album. She has some really cool things to say about you, and some really interesting stories to relay, including you calling the house and her saying, keep her away from me, and all of that. So there seems to be a great camaraderie there. Can you tell us how that grew over the years and how it came to be this close and this cool?
Well, Miss Wallace and I, like she says, shortly after she met me, we clicked. It wasn't, I'm kind of always been the same person, and that was my thing. I'm like, she needs to meet me so she knows, like you meet me, you gonna love me. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, we've always had a great relationship. I mean, obviously having to have sorted out and being co-executive of his estate and now Notorious Big LLC, we've had to do other things together outside of your typical mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship. But I mean, I just, when it comes to Big's estate and decisions like that, I tend to defer to her, and let her kind of, feel herself a little bit and all that, do her thing. And if it's something that I feel like I have a insight on that I need to share with her, then I do. Otherwise, I just kind of rock with her.
Yeah. It's great that you can kind of sense that you all have a great relationship just through listening to the project and hearing the little anecdotes. Okay, so we've heard about a film that's coming out, a biopic. We've heard about a documentary. There's probably another documentary. What can you tell us about what Big fans can expect, what Faith fans can expect next?
Well, we are working with A&E Films on a documentary about Big, and it's, you know, basically just little candid, funny stories from his friends and people that were close to him personally. You know, not just the same old stuff you have heard,
Right.
or not just stuff focused on his death and, you know, the whatever interpreted beef or whatever you want to, you know, what have you, those things. It's more just things that, you know, to this day, C's and Nino and Banger and all of us, we sit around and we laugh at the same things every time we're together, and it just is funny, you know. And it's like when people that are around us and they're like, "Oh my God, you guys have so much fun!" You're like, y'all laugh all the time. I mean, I guess someone that I was working with on you know, trying to develop a reality show, kind of got a gist of that and was like, you know, I would love to see something like that. So A&E Films approached us, and we thought it was you know, a cool, different approach, just to kind of give people an insight on, you know, why we love him.
Right. Anything else that we can expect?
Oh, I'm also developing a biopic based on my memoir.
Great.
So hopefully that'll be out later this year.
And that's another place where you kind of dug deep as well. So that's great to be able to follow this album up with that. All right, well, thank you so much.
And you know what? To be quite honest, it wasn't planned that way. So
awesome.
It really wasn't. And, you know, I was working on the album, and I started taking meetings with someone about doing a new book, and they were like, "I liked your first one too, and I actually wanted to talk to you about doing it." And I'm like, "Okay." So as you know, the things moved along, I guess, you know, lining things up, they're like, "Well, we might as well just kind of hold it off until the album, and you'll have something else to kind of keep some traction going, you know?"
Yeah. And what about as far as videos and singles from The King and I coming after today?
Actually, we just shot the video for Legacy
awesome.
In New York, which is produced by myself and Stevie J. DJ Pooh is supposed to be directing the video for When We Party, but I know he got his new movie coming out, so it's like, you know, we've been playing phone tag, but hopefully we're going to do that in the next couple of weeks as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you. And
well, thank y'all for having me. This was fun.
This was great. This was great. And what would you like to sign off with in terms of letting fans know when the album's coming? I know it's in May. Take it away.
The King and I is coming May 19th. It's available for pre-order now. I mean, he seems to like it, so I think that if he likes it, you might like it. I like it. You might like it. Shout out to my faithfuls. Shout out to all the big fans around the world who have continued to support his legacy. And I just really hope you guys enjoy The King and I. And thanks for having me.
Thank you. Take care.